As I stepped out of my squad car and onto the crumbling asphalt of Ravenswood Hill, a chill ran down my spine. The trees seemed to lean in, as if they were trying to listen in on my every thought. I had been a law enforcement officer for over a decade, but nothing could have prepared me for the eerie feeling that settled in the pit of my stomach as I gazed up at the mansion. The once grand estate loomed before me, its turrets and spires reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. I had received a cryptic message from an anonymous source, warning me of a forbidden prophecy that was set to unfold within the mansion's walls. The message had been vague, but the sense of urgency had been palpable. I had always been a skeptic when it came to the supernatural, but something about this felt different. As I began my ascent up the winding driveway, the trees seemed to close in around me, casting long, ominous shadows on the ground. As I approached the mansion, I noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, my hand resting on the grip of my gun. The interior was just as foreboding as the exterior, with cobwebs clinging to the chandeliers and a thick layer of dust coating every surface. I called out, but my voice was swallowed up by the silence. I knew I wasn't alone, though. I could feel eyes upon me, watching my every move. I began to explore the mansion, my footsteps echoing off the walls. Every step seemed to lead me deeper into the heart of the estate, further and further from the world outside. I stumbled upon a room that seemed to have been left untouched for decades. The air was thick with the scent of old books and decay. In the center of the room, a large, leather-bound tome lay open on a pedestal. The words on the page seemed to leap out at me, speaking of a great and terrible destiny that was soon to be fulfilled. As I read the words, a sense of unease began to build inside me. I had always believed in the power of free will, but the prophecy seemed to suggest that the course of events was already set in motion. I felt a sense of helplessness wash over me, as if I was nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game. I knew I had to keep moving, to try and prevent the prophecy from coming true. But a part of me wondered if it was already too late. As I continued to explore the mansion, I began to uncover clues that suggested the prophecy was connected to an ancient cult that had once worshipped in the very same halls. I found symbols etched into the walls, and strange artifacts that seemed to hold a dark and malevolent power. But with each new discovery, I felt my own sense of identity begin to slip away. Was I a law enforcement officer, sworn to uphold the law? Or was I something more, something destined for greatness? The internal conflict tore at me, threatening to rip me apart. I felt like I was being pulled in two different directions, with no clear path forward. And then, I heard the sound of footsteps, echoing through the halls. I knew I wasn't alone. The cult was real, and they were coming for me. I readied my gun, my heart pounding in my chest, but as I turned to face the approaching figures, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was me. Or, at least, a version of me. A version that had given in to the prophecy, embracing the darkness that lurked within. The two of us faced off, our guns locked and loaded. But as we stood there, frozen in time, I realized that I wasn't fighting the cult, or the prophecy. I was fighting myself. The version of me that stood before me was the embodiment of my own fears and doubts. And in that moment, I knew that I had the power to choose. I lowered my gun and took a step back. The other me hesitated. And for a moment, I saw a glimmer of uncertainty in its eyes. And then, it vanished. The prophecy was broken. Not because I had defeated the cult, but because I had defeated my own doubts and fears. I had chosen my own path. And in doing so, I had changed the course of destiny. As I walked back down the driveway, the trees seemed to lean back, as if they were watching me with a newfound respect. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. The mansion on the hill was still haunted, but I was no longer afraid. I had faced my own demons, and I had emerged victorious.